Injured by a drunk driver in a terrible car accident, Delia Knox was confined to a wheelchair for more than 22 years because of nerve damage. Because she was a widely noted singer, her paralysis was public knowledge throughout this period, attested in many newspaper articles and videos that are still widely available online. For years, Knox prayed for healing, but after 10 years she began to lose hope. She came to dread healing services, where at times well-intentioned but apparently rash ministers tried to pull her from her chair, expecting her to walk.
I didn't like going to altar calls because every time I would go somewhere, the service would change to a healing service and somebody would try to pull me out of the chair, and I've been plopped, dropped, flopped, and flipped, and to the point where I was like, I just can't go through that anymore.
One night during a crowded conference service, suddenly she began to feel something in her legs, though she had not felt anything there for 22 years. With her husband and other ministers helping to support her, she began to walk. Video captured these first steps. Internet critics scoffed that Knox needed support to walk, ignoring the fact that she was the one controlling legs that she had never moved for 22 years. Her muscles were still atrophied, so she had to relearn how to walk. Another video shows Knox marching into a church service 3 weeks later, stable and ready to pray for others' healing. How did critics respond now? Some scoffed that after one's muscles had atrophied for 22 years, one would not be able to walk so quickly. Not only is this the exact opposite of the earlier complaint, it misses the point. Hardline skeptics do not want to call anything that could possibly happen naturally a miracle. But when God does something that cannot happen naturally, they deny that any such thing is possible. How can one explain the disappearance of paralysis after 22 years? Since Knox was now obviously able to walk, some internet critics insisted that she had simply faked paralysis for 22 years so she could claim healing now. They were actually suggesting that someone would endure more than 2 decades of not walking in public just to claim a miracle later. This sort of skeptical speculation convinced me of only one thing, that some hard skeptics will go to any lengths to avoid believing. Some who demand evidence are really not open-minded enough to accept any. Before my own conversion, I was an atheist, but I valued truth enough to want to follow where the evidence led. Fake miracles exist, but this one cannot qualify as such. Delia Knox's previous disability was well-documented public knowledge. But even had I lacked access to such documentation, I soon encountered people who knew her. I heard Knox's story originally because one of her old friends shared news of it with a friend of mine. When I was lecturing for a conference at Northeastern Seminary in Rochester, New York, I learned further details. When I recounted what I knew by then of Knox's story, Bob Tice, a pastor from Buffalo, New York, Knox's hometown, offered his direct insight and some details I hadn't known. Before planting a new church in inner-city Buffalo, Tice had been one of the pastors at the Tabernacle, Knox's original home church in Buffalo. Because she was disabled, he had often helped lift her up onto the platform when she would sing. He witnessed how valiantly she labored against her physical struggles. Tice connected me with Bishop Tommy Reed, Knox's then 84-year-old former pastor at the Tabernacle in Buffalo. In recent decades, Reed has helped spearhead the urban renewal of that city. Because I was traveling for the next couple of weeks, I delayed calling him. On the afternoon of Friday, July 8, 2016, however, I felt an urgency to call right away. To my amazement, Reed noted that Knox and her husband were sitting across from him at that very moment. They happened to be visiting Buffalo, so I was able to talk with her directly. Bishop Reed noted that he had known Delia Knox well for many years. She was like a second daughter to him, and his daughter always calls Knox her little sister. In his younger days, Reed had been healed from polio, and he had witnessed many extraordinary miracles. But he now considered Knox's healing the most extraordinary miracle he knew firsthand, because she had not walked for more than 20 years. Before the miracle, she couldn't have felt her legs even if someone had driven a nail through them, he explained. She was singing from her wheelchair for Reed's church when she met her husband, Bishop Levy Knox. Bishop Reed even officiated at their wedding. Because of Delia Knox's wheelchair, however, he had never been able to look at her eye to eye without getting down on his knees. He tried to describe for me his emotion on the day when he first saw her eye to eye, when she returned to Buffalo after the miracle. I'll never forget the first time when I could look directly in her face. She walked off the plane pushing the wheelchair with her luggage in it. Still later, when I gave a guest lecture at Houghton College in New York State, someone else in that room also had known Knox and testified directly to her healing. By that point, though, further interviews seemed superfluous. On the night that Delia Knox was healed, she was deeply moved with compassion for an ill baby. She was not praying for her own healing, but when she prayed for the baby, feeling began to return to her own legs. She and her husband believe that compassion helped unlock the miracle. When feeling returned to her legs, she needed both faith to try to move them as best she could, and humility to not care what people thought if she fell. The test of her faith did not end with 22 years of disability or her act of faith during the service. Her nerves now worked, but in contrast to Barbara Comiskey-Snyder's healing, Knox's muscles remained atrophied from years of disuse. When she got home after the service, she again could not walk, nor could she walk in the Sunday church service. In faith, she had to keep exercising the new gift of mobility, trying until she built up enough muscle strength to walk normally. Even once she could walk, her feet, unaccustomed to being flat on the ground, remained painful at first. But soon she was walking again. Some weeks after Knox's healing, she returned to visit her home church. When Bishop Reed escorted her to see her mother, he suggested to her mother, "You must be thrilled to see her walking." This was the first time Knox's mother had seen her walk in over 20 years. There are many other examples of healings captured on video, some of which are noted in my previous book on miracles. But Delia Knox's decades of public presence in a wheelchair make her case particularly conspicuous. As noted earlier, an inflexible skeptic actually posted online that Knox must have faked her disability for 2 decades so she could later claim healing. When that is the best public argument that a hard skeptic can muster, skepticism is walking on thin ice.
The miracle is the journey, is not the moment. It's the journey of recognizing who God is. If he would have never healed me, I would still be pushing through to get into his face. Because it's not about the healing, it's about the journey of knowing that God is there for us.